somewhere in that list.
All right. All right, Basha, I think that's what we need.
Basha, you are muted. I'm not sure if you know that.
Oh, thanks. Here we go. So as Rick is sharing the screen, I'm going to go over just a few of the slides from the Board of Education meeting. And this is based on our conversation that we had yesterday with our parents. And so I'll only go over through the other slides as well. But please know that the conversation from the Board of Education meeting has been recorded along with the parent meeting from yesterday as well. So the first thing I want to talk about is I'm gonna share with you a little bit about background information and the process that we took to create this plan at Pinckney Community Schools. I'll talk about the major phases of the return to school roadmap. You'll notice that phase 4 is the one that we really focused on at the Board of Education meeting and at the meeting yesterday. However, a lot of our parents that were with us yesterday had lots of questions about our virtual offering. And so what I'm proposing that we do, unless people really would not like me to do that, and please use the chat feature to tell us, is what I'm proposing is that I'm going to go over the first 3 bullets, and then we're going to skip right down to the virtual academy. And then after that, we'll open it up for questions. I hope that makes sense. So the first part, as far as background information, Rick, if you want to advance the slide. Just so you know, the Michigan's 2021 Return to School Roadmap guidance document was released on June 30th, 2020. The document is divided into 4 major sections, and the sections that it divides into are based on the phases that our region or our state is in. The phases are determined by the governor. They are not determined by schools. And currently we are in phase 4. And so the document states that if we're in phase 4, schools are able to open with strict safety protocols. And so I'll kind of talk about that in just a minute. The other piece of the back to school roadmap is that it's divided into 4 other categories within each phase. And it talks about safety protocols, the mental and social emotional well-being of students and staff, instruction and operations. I will talk about some of those protocols for our phase 4, but again, I am going to really talk a lot about the virtual plan, and it sounds like from the comments that are coming in that people feel good about that. Next slide. Oh, one more time. So here are the phases that I want to just give you a brief overview of what school will look like if we are in these different phases. You will notice phase 6 is not on here. And the reason why it's not on here is because it is as close to back to normal as we can think of. I think we're always going to have some safety protocols in place. We always do it schools, but phase 6 means that we are, kind of back to where we were prior to the closure back in March. And so that's why it's not on there. Phase 1 through 3, this is what we experienced in March. We were closed. There's no, and so an emergency remote plan is activated. All students and staff are virtual, and our Pinckney Virtual Academy is offered. You will notice that our Pinckney Virtual Academy is offered in every single phase, including phase 6 for the 2021 school year. So no matter what phase we're in, if we're in phase 3, 4, 5, we will still be offering our Pinckney Virtual Academy for those families who would like their students to still learn with us, but virtually. You will notice that in phase 1 through 3, the instruction will be synchronous and asynchronous. Synchronous instruction is what I'm doing right now. It is live instruction. You have to log in at a specific time and join a meeting or a lesson. Asynchronous instruction is for those of you who watch the board meeting. And when we talk about phase 1 through 3, we're talking about students experiencing daily live time instruction that's happening from their teachers, and in addition, pre-recorded lessons that they can watch on their own time and complete assignments on their own time. Phase 1 through 3 will have 5 days of remote learning, so obviously we cannot be in schools. And phase 1 through 3 will be very, very, if you can think of it, in the spring, our schools shut prior notice, and our schools were asked to do almost the impossible. We had 3 weeks to activate ourselves into being a full virtual school when none of our schools were built to be virtual. And so the training and the planning and all of those things that go into starting something like that is incredible. And we only had 3 weeks. So our kids, and we know that there were some challenges with the plan from the spring. Any of our families or even parents or teachers about that. So we used feedback from our parents, and from our teachers and from our students, and we have really changed our remote emergency plan that will include assessments, it will include grading, it will include students are going to be required to complete coursework, students are going to be required to log in, attendance will be taken. All of those things will be part of this remote emergency plan instruction. So it is already, just those things are. I'm going to move on to phase 4 now. And,
and Basha,
yep,
I'm just gonna, I apologize. I know those listening out there, the audio is obviously kind of being buffered in and out. So that's not any fault of Ms. Keeler. It's just for whatever reason, the bandwidth is getting kind of squeezed. And so I want to let you know that too, Basha, that your audio sometimes garbled and then feeds up. And so I think we're okay right now. So just want to let people know that we apologize about that. There's not a whole lot we can do at this time.
Oh my gosh, I am so sorry. So if you go back, Rick, to the other slide, I want to talk about phase 4 instruction. The phase 4 instruction is in-school instruction, which is what we're in now, with strict safety and social distancing protocols. So some highlights from this plan for face-to-face instruction includes all K-12 students and staff will be required to wear facial coverings. All strict social distancing guidelines will be followed, and as I mentioned before, our Pinckney Virtual Academy will be offered. Our synchronous and asynchronous instruction will occur on Fridays. And so our learning will take place 4 days a week, which will be face-to-face, and Fridays being remote learning. And that's where that asynchronous learning will occur, which is on your own time. Again, students will be assessed, they will be graded, they will be required to complete coursework, attendance will be taken. All of those things will be happening in phase 4. Phase 5 is, again, in-school instruction, but with lesser safety protocols, moderate, if we are in phase 5. So it'll be a very similar plan to phase 4, but some of the requirements now will be won't be required for schools to implement. The big change between phase 4 and phase 5 is that our kids will be going back to school for the full 5 days. And so in phase 4, because we need to do deep cleaning on Fridays, because our teachers are going to be teaching virtual and face-to-face lessons, and I'll talk about that in the virtual presentation in a moment, we really needed those Fridays in order to do that. And so that's why the Fridays are the ones that are virtual for our students. Our staff is still working on those days. They're still providing lessons to our kids, and our custodians are deep cleaning our buildings. So I just wanted everyone to understand the purpose of why Fridays are virtual for all of our students.
And Basha, I'm just going to interject. There's a question in the chat regarding why we're going above and beyond the road plan mandate from face masks, because in the plan it specifies that students 6 through 12 would wear face masks throughout the day in their classrooms, and then grades K through 5 would not have to wear them as long as they're in their cohort in their classroom. all students, regardless of grades, have to wear them on the bus. And so, that's a great question. And it's one that we've talked about at a county-wide, and we're pretty much on a consensus of this, is that we want to create the safest environment possible. We know that opening up school there's definitely some concerns and worries, some anxieties around that. And we want to create a consistent environment where we're all doing our part, wearing masks. It's becoming a common part of our everyday life, regardless of where we go. And we want to make sure that all our students and our staff feel safe throughout the entire district. And so we wanted to put the expectation that all students from kindergarten, or really kinder ready through 12th grade, would be wearing masks. Now, with that being said, we're also conscious of the adolescence appropriateness and some of the challenges, especially with our younger kiddos in grades kindergarten, first grade. And our teachers are going to be thinking about opportunities for taking breaks and really looking at allowing opportunities for snacks in the room, going outside, and because we know it's going to be a new process for students to wear them for a prolonged period of time. So we understand that. And so we're going to try to be conscious and strategic and intentional about when they can have breaks for that. And so once again, we want to all work together, be consistent. From what we've seen from students wearing masks in the areas that we've had in school over the summer, our Pirate Camp, been really impressed with students and even our younger ones wearing masks when they've been asked to. The governor just last week put out a new executive order where she was mandating that young students in both daycares and camps had to wear masks. And we do believe that this has actually become the expectation in schools as well. We think that's the trajectory of this. So we wanted to get ahead of that and just once again build the expectation for all our students. We do have the opportunity to go above and beyond what the roadmap plan does state as requirements, and we feel that this is the best way to go in terms of building the safest environment K-12 for all our staff and for our students.
Yep. So what I would do right now, Rick, is I would move to the virtual slides.
Yep.
Is my audio getting better?
It is right now.
You're very clear right now.
Is this where you want to be?
Rick, it's still showing phase 4 plan right now.
Okay. I can't hear Basha, so I'm trying to wonder where she wants to be at.
I think the next slide.
All right, perfect. Thanks so much, Rick. You guys can hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I want to talk about the virtual academy overall, and then I want to talk about specific details for our K-6 students and our 7-12 students. So the first thing I want to say is, and I already mentioned this, it will be offered all year, no matter the phase we are in, for all K-12 students. Parents should expect asynchronous and synchronous instruction, meaning that live instruction and that pre-recorded instruction. One of the goals that we had with our Pinckney Virtual Academy, we had 3 goals. One of them is we wanted our Pinckney teachers to be teaching these classes to our kids, because we know that this is temporary and we know that some of our kids will want to come back to our schools. The other goal was that we wanted to make sure that they have a sense of community. And what that means is that if students should choose to return back to school, that they have a classroom to go back to taught by a Pinckney teacher, and they have a community of learners that although they were there remote, they can still come back to students that were face-to-face. And then the last piece is we wanted to use our curriculum, so Pinckney Community Schools curriculum, so that way kids are not coming back with gaps, because we know that they were learning with our curriculum and our teachers and so forth. So that was the 3 goals that we wanted to make sure that we accomplished when we designed our virtual academy. So the way that we have students right now, that we are going to assign students to their virtual courses is they're going to be cohorted together, so they will have a community of learners. Okay, virtual students will be together, and should students return back to face-to-face learning, let's say we move to phase 5, or parents are feeling more comfortable, they will be placed with the same teacher that taught them virtually. That was really important to us as well. Students will still be able to choose to attend in-person events like school dances, graduation, spirit wear, appear in our yearbook. They're still Pinckney Pirates. They're still a country student or a Farley student or a high school student. They still are our students. It's not a different program. Students are also able to participate in most activities such as sports and clubs. And families can make a switch at the end of the semester for virtual face-to-face learning. So I want to talk a little bit about that because there's going to be a lot of questions about when can our students return. So this virtual academy is different from that emergency remote plan. This means that you are planning on your child to stay in this virtual program because of safety measures. You don't feel comfortable with your child being around other kids when we are in a phase 4 as a state or as a community. And again, that's set by the governor. Because of that, we really wanted to make sure that the kids have a consistent schedule, whether they're face-to-face or not face-to-face. And so if we move to phase 5, and let's say we move to phase 5 by October, we definitely are going to make decisions and say, hey, if any families want their virtual students to come back to the classroom, here's the time to do it. And we'll open those up earlier. Let's say when we say semester, we just want parents to know that you're planning for an extended period of time. You're not just planning for a week or 2. Because that causes a lot of havoc for our teachers and the face-to-face students, for students to be coming in and out of the classroom on a regular basis, as you can imagine. And so the reason why we're saying that we're cohorting the students together is because those kids will then come back to a classroom where there's other virtual learners as well. And so they will have peers that they've connected with virtually. And when they come back to school, which our hopes are that they will come back face-to-face, that they're going to have friends that they've made because they were virtually with them already. It's just now they get to see them face-to-face. Next slide. So here's some details for our K-6 students. So the learning will be fluid for our K-6 students. So as you all can imagine, elementary students require a lot more support in being, and it's a lot more difficult for them to be independent than our secondary students, which would be grades 7 through 12. And because of that, we also know that parents are working. We also know that parents' schedules are not a 9 to 4 schedule like a traditional school schedule is. And so this learning will be fluid. Fluid meaning, yes, we will provide synchronous classes, but if a parent can't get their child on because that's their daycare day and they're not home because they're at work, those lessons will be pre-recorded. They will be recorded and they will be sent to our families via Seesaw so that the families can watch that lesson together at their own time and then complete the assignment that is part of that lesson. And so we will have options for parents to call in, or students for them to come in live into the classroom. And we will also have the asynchronous piece. We don't want to penalize students because of their work schedule. There will be small group time scheduled over the course of the week to provide opportunities for more instruction, and it's really dependent on the amount of support that a child needs. You will receive a weekly schedule. So on Monday, it's gonna say, okay, this is what the literacy lesson is. Here's the recorded lesson. Here's the assignment. Here's the math lesson. Here's the recorded. Here's the assignment. Our science lesson is live today because you're going to watch a demonstration. And here's the information for you to log on. And the social studies lesson is this, and so forth. And so the the recordings and everything will be really organized for you as a parent in order to support your child at the K-6 level. And the reason why we're doing that is because this was the feedback that received from the spring plan, is it was too much in one day. We wanted to set aside, like, this is what you do on Monday, this is what you do on Tuesday, this is what you do on Wednesday, Thursday, and so forth. So that's going to be part of it too. When the students are cohorted at the elementary levels, I didn't really speak to that, what they will look like. So let's say Mrs. Smith in first grade at Country, there is 20 virtual students in first grade at Country Elementary. We are going to take all of those students and put them into one class. And let's say Mrs. Smith is the one that really is interested in teaching the virtual students. And so those kids will be cohorted into one class together. There might also be students coming into that classroom face-to-face. And so that teacher will be responsible for teaching face-to-face students. So there might be, 8 students face-to-face, and there might be students that are virtual. And so that one class per grade level at Country will have sort of a mix of students in their class. The class size will still be the same, just like any other class size in the building. It's just the mode of instruction will change. And so our teachers were sending out a form actually today to ask our teachers to volunteer if this is something that they're interested in doing. I know that this plan was developed with teachers, and they really wanted to have a sense of, this was really exciting to them. They thought they could pair up some virtual students with some face-to-face students, and be able to do some group work together. So all of those things were taken into account, and our teachers were really excited about it. They're excited to teach this new way of learning. And should students want to come back, should parents feel more comfortable coming back, they're coming back to a classroom that's already established. They already know all the kids in that classroom. They know that teacher. It'll be a smooth transition for them to come back face-to-face learning. And that was our goal. So we will be utilizing Seesaw for our K-6 students, as our families and teachers are already familiar with the platform. We also received a lot of feedback around Seesaw, and I will tell you that it's going to be a lot cleaner and smoother experience for parents and students. When we loaded everything in the spring, again, it was loaded differently than what we now learned from that experience. And so every class will be kind of separated in Seesaw, so it's going to be a lot easier for you to manage with your child. It's not all going to be, in a stream of things. It's going to be a lot more organized. So I can promise you that, because that's been feedback that we received from our parents and our teachers and students. If you go to the next slide, Rick.
Do you want to just take a break? I just want to maybe see some of the questions and
Okay.
touch base. I know Michael and I are
Thank you. I'm typing as fast as I can, but
I know you are. So I'm watching. I'm trying to pay attention and type as well. But so I'm scanning up because I knew some questions that I wasn't able to get a response to.
Can either of you address the question about the number of kids per classroom this year versus previous years?
Yeah, I think for the most part, they're going to be pretty similar. There's not a drastic change. Anywhere, if you're looking at classes from the early primary years, kindergarten, first, second, third grade, kindergarten, first grade, they've always hovered around 25, maybe first grade 28. So, it goes, either way, upper, or we've had smaller classes. So they're going to be around there. Classes that are from third grade on up will be anywhere between 25 and 30, generally. Now, obviously, it's going to be dependent too, because we have students who are going to be virtual. So students are learning at home, that's going to impact classes. They're going to be smaller. So we have to take that into account, and we won't really know what that's going to be until the end of the week. We had 458 parents express interest in virtual learning from the interest survey. So obviously now this week, folks are registering. So, once we have that in the mix, that's going to impact class size as well. But they're not going to be dramatically different than what we've had in the past.
How about specials and virtual students? That's come up a few times in the list here. So maybe if one of the two of you wants to talk about what that would look like in K6, 7, 8, 9, 12.
So K6, the specials will be just like they are normally. The the teachers will still provide a lesson that will be implemented, obviously at home. And so it might be a short video to watch. It might be an activity to do. It just depends on what grade level the student is in at the K-6 level. If I go to the 712 slide, Rick, if you want to forward that on or move the slides forward, I can talk a little bit about what 712 will look like, because I hear a lot of the questions are coming for 712, and it's a little different than K-6. Okay, so 712, the details are the following. The students will be cohorted, again, virtual students per hour. You should expect your child to attend class from the comfort of their own home, just like they would attend class if they were in school. Now, there's a little, I'm going to pause here for a second, because it's not going to be exactly the same, clearly. The first thing I want to tell you is that our secondary students, we are doing block scheduling. And so what that means is students will not be seeing all 7 of their teachers in one day. They will be seeing 4 out of the 7 teachers in one day. And then we're going to rotate. Okay. The next thing I want to tell you is the virtual students will also follow a block schedule. They will also receive a schedule like first hour is this, second hour is this, third hour is this. And so their teachers will reach out to them with the specific schedules of when they would log in live to be to have that instruction. And then what will happen is the teachers will either, because they're 90-minute blocks, we don't expect the kids to be in classroom virtually for 90 minutes, but we do expect them to log in, view the lesson, and then if they don't have any questions to ask of the teacher, then they can log off and complete the assignment. And then they will do that on a regular basis. So they're going to follow their traditional schedule, but it'll be at home. The reasoning behind this is that our 712 students are a lot more independent and self-driven, and so they are able to follow that kind of schedule at home. Our elementary students are really dependent on the adults that are around them. So that's why it's a little different. We'll be utilizing Google Classroom for our 712 students. And again, our teachers are going through an extensive amount of training all summer long around Google Classroom and all the ins and outs of Google Classroom. The other piece I also want to talk about is specials will be part of the student schedule. So if I'm a 7th grade English teacher and my first hour is my virtual hour, that means first hour, all my 7th grade English kids will be logging in at whatever time that starts, and I'm going to have a live lesson with my teacher. And then the teacher will do an assignment, ask for any questions, and they don't need to stay in with that teacher for the remainder of the time, but they do need to complete the assignments and then obviously turn them in. So that's how the secondary virtual is working. I know there's going to be a lot of questions about CTE for the high school students. And so CTE is the programs that are a Livingston County consortium where they go, some of our students will drive out to Howell to take classes. Some of them will drive out to Brighton. And so we cannot replicate CTE programs because they are, the content is delivered through sometimes a different school district. And so if students are in CTE, we are expecting them to attend those CTE courses face-to-face. But all the other courses that they would normally take at Pinckney High School are going to be offered to them virtually. Again, same schedule as they would follow with, if they were face-to-face. Some of our courses, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I thought you were done. So go ahead and finish, Basha, and then I'll ask you the question.
Yep. Some of our courses that we are offering as far as elective courses at the secondary level, our students might need to make some changes. And if they sign up to be virtual, they will work with their administrator or counselor in making sure that the courses that they're taking, we are going to be offering them virtually. And it's because we just can't replicate those courses in a virtual setting. I do know that physical education will be offered virtually. That was a big question that came out yesterday, just because some kids need these courses to graduate at the high school level, especially if they're a senior. So, but there will be some instances where we are just not able to replicate a course. And one that I'm thinking about is, what did we talk about? Welding? I can't remember, but it was where the students need the equipment, the welding equipment and all this equipment at their home in order to learn anything. If we can't replicate that, we would not be offering that course as a virtual course.
The question, I know it's been mentioned here at least once, and I'm sure it's going to come up, is about band, orchestra, choir, those music activities, and virtual students.
Okay, so band will still, they can still take band virtually. It's just students will be practicing their instruments at home and not in the classroom. I do know that band is going to look very different this year for face-to-face students when we're in phase 4. And the reason why is because blowing into instruments and all those air droplets in the air cannot happen in phase 4. And so I know that our teachers are working hard to find alternative settings. I know if the weather's nice, they'll be outside practicing and trying to get as much practice as possible. But our students will be doing a lot of the practice on their own at home. So that's one. Orchestra will still take place. And then I think you said choir. It really depends on the number of students that sign up for the virtual choir program at the high school level. So that is a question that really depends on the number of kids that sign up.
Right. And we as parents, obviously our band programs, one of our many of our shining bright spots here, and very proud of the program. And, the reality is that, as Basha said, it's not going to look the same. We're probably going to be spending some time on music theory. There's going to be a little more instruction, I think, because obviously a performance is going to be, a performance-based class and be very difficult because we're going to have students both at home and at school. We're not able to do any concerts or anything of that sort at this time. But we have to just keep in mind this is temporary. What we want to do is try to keep kids engaged with music, their passion for music, to help persevere through this and get back to where we can kind of assimilate what we used to do with our band and music classes. And so I've already met with Mr. Sutton, who he's excited about trying to be creative. He's actually connecting and networking with band directors from across the country, because they're all, facing the same challenge, and they're trying to be creative in different ways to keep the kids playing and engage as much as possible, whether that's at home or here at school.
I think that was my presentation. I think I covered everything.
Yeah, and well, I'm just gonna jump in just a couple quick questions too before we kind of proceed. Is had a couple questions regarding this latchkey. Obviously we're going to continue offering our morning and afternoon latchkey. I've just met again with Brian Wardlow, our Director of Community Ed, this morning. We are going to be moving forward with Friday latchkey service, and so just working with staff and taking a look at what that would look like. And that is a great opportunity for those students who are there who, with computers and technology, to engage in their virtual learning as well. So that's definitely, I think that was a question that I saw. So take advantage of them being here with us on those Fridays. Jennifer asked a question about estimated time of how much a second grader, maybe with special needs, would spend on virtual school. That's a real tough one, Jennifer, because obviously, especially with special needs, that can vary depending on the support they need and as adolescents. So we're cognizant of the age of our students, the adolescent development. And it's not meant to replicate a school day. So I can tell you right now, we're not going to expect students to be on a computer from 8 o'clock till 3:30. And, our hope is that they can be engaged in some meaningful learning a few hours a day. And, that's the important thing, is to get them on a schedule, on a routine. That's a healthy thing for all our kids. And to get them, once again, engaged with their classroom, engaged with the content and the learning on a regular basis.
So there is a question that there's a request for some clarification on what absences look like for a virtual student, when a parent needs to report that or not report it. I think they're just looking for more details on how do I handle an absence?
Yeah, right. And, and actually, absences, whether, in school or at home, it's going to look a little bit different just because of the nature of the situation. We're going to have students kind of coming in and out throughout the course of the year. Obviously, we talked about, some students maybe entering back in, or students, may have to be home for some time for safety reasons. So we're awaiting, first off, just some clarification from the state on attendance expectations. As a school, attendance is really critical. We get audited, we have to do a lot of reporting, And our foundation is dependent on that. If we don't have 75% of our students in attendance in a day of school, that day doesn't count. And if it doesn't count, we don't get funded. Our funding is prorated for that. So we're looking to have that change because, you know, obviously this is a unique situation. And I think it will change. You just haven't come out with the new state guidelines, but I think that'll hopefully happen in the next few weeks, especially before school starts. But when you're a virtual student, you don't have to worry about attendance in terms of reporting it to the school. What I would say as a parent, if your child is sick where they cannot perform the duties of, you know, the learning activities, the lessons, or maybe engage in an online lesson or a Zoom session, I would simply just communicate one-on-one with your teacher to let them know that you're just not able physically to do that. You know, obviously if they're sick, they're in bed, they're not feeling well. And I think it's more of the communication so that teacher understands, you know, why they're not engaged. You don't have to report absences when you're a virtual student. You know, we've had virtual students for many years. That's nothing that we've ever required, and it's not required by the state. So don't worry about that. But once again, it's more about the communication with that classroom instructor. So they're just aware that they're not able to perform the learning activities for that day or period of days.
I do want to also answer some questions about supplies and Chromebooks, like how will these things be distributed to our virtual learners? We will supply, so I was just on the phone, this is why I was late. I was on the phone with the elementary principals at Country and Farley, and they were talking about how to set up art supplies for face-to-face students, but also our virtual students, where they have all the materials at home. We will create a process of once our families sign up to be virtual, what we will do is we'll reach out to them and create a process for them to pick up all of their needed materials, which will include Chromebook, any special supplies, anything that they might need. Some of the books, our Journeys books, our math expressions books, our workbooks, all of those things will be provided to our students who are at home, just like they would get them in the classroom. So you can expect that. And we'll follow a process. It'll be a pickup process that we've done, similar one. I know that the tech guys were distributing Chromebooks to the 7th graders, I believe, last week. And it was a drive-through process. It was all ready to go, and people just drove through, and we put the machines in their cars and called it a day. So we will have the same process for that.
There was a question for some clarification. 3rd through 6th grade, we have the Chromebooks available right now. We just, for 3rd through 6th grade, we have them available now. And so if a student is enrolled, whether they're online or face-to-face, we'll have that computer available. The kindergarten through 2nd grade computers are on back order. Frankly, there's a worldwide shortage of Intel processors. So we can't do anything about that. Schools all over the nation are suffering from that. So we expect to receive those early in October and would get them out to students as quickly as possible. We do have some of the other Chromebooks we'll basically harvest from our spare pile in order to make sure that any virtual student who needs, any K2 virtual student who needs to have a Chromebook, we'll make sure they have one as well.
Mm-hmm. Just responding to the question from Lindy, just wondering if we're anticipating class sizes increasing because of families may choose Pinckney because we're offering in-person instruction. Once again, I've always shared that, we're very fortunate in Livingston County is that we work very closely with our counterparts. There's only 5 school districts in this county. We're known to be the most collaborative group around. And because we're all trying to help each other be successful. And right now, every district in Livingston County is offering in-person instructions. That's all part of our plans. Our plans are very similar. You've seen Heartland's plan. They get a 4+1. They're going to be very similar. Friday is their day off. Fowlerville and Brighton are looking at, their Wednesday is their day, but they're all similar in what we're offering, virtual academies and things of that sort. So I don't anticipate a big influx. Obviously we always want people to come. We believe deeply in Pinckney Community Schools, and it's great that they may choose us, but I don't anticipate that being something that we can't handle. We've had some interest. We've had some families who are expressing interest for a variety of reasons to come here. It hasn't caused an issue in terms of class sizes, but obviously that would be a great problem to have. I'm not going to say that it wouldn't be, but right now that's not something we're anticipating it's going to be an issue going forward.
I do want to talk about open houses. So I do know that the K-6 open houses are going to be virtual, and again, it's It's not because we don't want to open our doors, but it's because we want to limit the number of people who are coming into our buildings because we're in phase 4. And so our teachers will actually be doing Zoom open houses. And so you'll have a time to log in and see the classroom, meet the teacher virtually with your child, and they'll talk about all of these things, particularly for your child and their grade level. The other question, as far as the high school and 7-8 building, I believe that they are doing open houses after school year starts, and I believe that they will be virtual as well. And again, it's to limit the number of people who are coming into our building. One of the requirements in phase 4 is that any visitor and volunteer, we will not be allowed in the buildings during phase 4. And again, it's to limit the amount of people who are coming inside and outside of the building. Now, we know that there's going to be exceptions for meetings or picking up your child and so forth. We'll have a very strict screening protocol that the parents will have to follow, or the guardians, before they come in and pick up their child. The other question was, are temperatures being taken? And what protocols are we going to follow when students return to school if they're sick? And will you require negative COVID tests to return to school? Rick just sent out an email yesterday, and I know he sent out a lot of emails, but yesterday, and it had a number of documents that included, like, if this happens, this is what the school district will need to follow. And these documents were from the Livingston County Health Department. And so we cannot require anyone to take a COVID test. So if they do not take a COVID test, then they need to be quarantined for 14 days. And they cannot come back to school until they're quarantined. If they do take a COVID test and it comes back negative, then they can return back to school. So I just want to say that there are very strict guidelines and protocols that we will be following. And if you haven't had a chance to look at those attachments, I urge you to do so, because they're very clear in letting you know of what process we will follow.
Right, and it's important to know that we meet on a weekly basis with the health department, and sometimes more than once a week. And everything we do from a health standpoint works hand in hand with their guidance and with their suggestions. And with this situation, their role is going to be critical. And whenever a situation comes up, a concern, or we've got somebody who's exhibiting symptoms, we're going to contact the health department immediately. We actually have a form that we have to fill out that starts a process for contact tracing, and they're right in there with us, helping make sure that we can notify anybody who may have been in contact, whether that could be outside of school. It's not necessarily in school, but it could be in their life at home as well, and making sure that they have all the necessary information. Obviously, when something arises, we want that family or that student to get COVID tested as soon as possible. But if that, for whatever reason, that doesn't happen, as Mrs. Keeler said, is they're going to have to stay home for that 14 days. And the health department will actually dictate when they could come back to school based on the time, their symptoms, when they stop exhibiting symptoms, and all the factors that have to be in place. And so that won't be a school decision. That'll be a health department decision on when they could return safely to school.
Yep. Lindy, you asked a question about our class sizes increasing, and I know Rick answered that question, but we have standard numbers for our class sizes. So if they go over, then we would open up another section. We're not anticipating that to happen, but if it does, then, good for us. We'd love to take more students in our district. And so we'll still be able to keep those social distancing measures in place. The other piece, there's a question about masks. Like, if a student doesn't wear a mask, are they sent home and so forth? So we are treating the masks just like any dress code protocol. It's just going to be part of the dress code, is that everyone has to have a face mask on. Our teachers will be teaching the students how to properly wear the face mask, how, how does it have to fit around your mouth and so forth. And they will send reminders to students if they are not keeping them on their face. Obviously, it becomes a huge problem, then we would involve our families and parents to come in and support us in that effort. It is going to be a team effort for us to do. I know that all of our staff will be trained on how to wear a face mask appropriately. You wouldn't think that we would need it, but we do. Some people are not wearing face masks appropriately. It does have to cover your entire nose and your chin. And so we want to make sure that our staff knows how to do it, and then they teach the students how to do it. It's just going to be another one of those protocols that students will learn at the beginning of the year, just like any other beginning of the year that they learn procedures and so forth. This is going to be an additional procedure that they will learn. The other question was about, buses and wearing face masks on buses and so forth. Our bus drivers will have face masks available for students. All of our teachers will as well in every classroom. And so if students come into the classroom and they forget their face mask, we will have face masks for them. They will, unless a student has a medical documentation that they cannot wear a face mask, the students are going to be required to wear them, just like the staff is as well.
It's here's a good question from Jessica. If a child does test positive and needs a quarantine, are they able to attend virtually during this time? And absolutely.
Yes.
That was really a crucial part of our strategic planning with this, is that, when students have to stay home for whatever reason, a period of time, is the teachers are going to be loading all their lessons, whether you're in school or out of school, via Seesaw, via Google Classroom, because we know that learning is going to be fluid, whether at home or in school. And we do not want students, if they have to, worst case scenario, be home for 14 days, be 2 weeks behind. That just doesn't make any sense. Obviously, if they're sick and they're just not able to participate, that's one thing. But if they're home just because they have to kind of quarantine, but they feel good enough to do the learning, we definitely want that. And so we're trying to create as much flexibility to be able to transition back and forth as seamless as possible. And, that when we started doing this back in May, that was already kind of like the forefront of our planning for the fall. Was we just have to have, our teachers understand when creating lesson plans, let's just build it from the ground up from Seesaw and Google Classroom, because then it's available for everybody, whether you're physically here or you're at home. So that's a key part of the strategy, to make sure that when students are home, they can continue their learning.
There's a question about elementary students who need extra help. Can they meet with their resource room teacher face to face? That's really going to be dependent on their IEP. So if a child has an IEP, that will be a conversation that will be had during an IEP meeting if they're enrolled in the virtual academy. Carrie asked about why we're having a student Zoom orientation if we are starting face-to-face in 2 weeks. And it's because we are still implementing all of the safety protocols, the stickers, the social distancing. Everything is just not set in buildings as of yet. It will be prior to September 8th, but because we want our students to get excited about school, to get their schedules and do all of those things, that's why we are doing that Zoom for the 7th and 8th graders.
That kind of goes hand in hand with the kindergarten question that's down a little further. Go ahead.
Yep. Oh, so sorry. At kindergarten, and I also want to talk about the lunch schedule. So the first day of kindergarten, what it's going to look like. So our principals are actually planning that. I know that there is that they're coming in, I think at Farley this Thursday. The kindergartners are coming in and they're going to be outside to meet with some of the staff at Farley. And I know Country is also having one, and I believe it's next week. And that's to learn, say hello and all those things. So they are doing that face to face. It will be outside and it will be socially distanced. But the other thing that I want to talk about is lunch. So because we're having the schedules at the 7-12 level that are block schedules, we're able to implement more lunches, which means the kids are going to be socially distanced. So like our 9-12 students, if you know anything about that lunchroom, usually there's 2 lunches at the high school, I believe, or 3. They're going to 5 lunches, and there will be 3 students per table. And those are those round tables at lunchtime. And so students will take their face masks off to eat. Once they're done eating, they're going to put their face masks back on. In the other lunches, as far as the elementary levels, the students will still be going into the lunchroom. They're going to sit apart, so they're not touching anyone. Usually they squeeze those kids in at those lunch tables at the elementary level. And right now we have it set as 6 per lunch table, which is a lot less than what it normally is, in order to provide them distance and so forth. Again, students will have to take their masks off to eat, but once they're done eating, they're going to put their masks back on. Lindy, you asked about PVA and in-person students with using Seesaw Google Classroom about the same amount of time each day, correct? Yes. about the same amount each day. For the 7th, 12th grade students, I would say K-6 students, it might look a little bit different, only because they're not going to be doing all of their assignments in Seesaw. They might be doing some assignments in those workbooks, the practice workbooks, which will be sent home.
Let's see, question from a parent says, teacher test positive for COVID-19. Will the students in the class be required to stay home for 2 weeks? Well, quite possibly. Once again, it really depends on the timing. We had some situations over the summer with some athletes that there was just concerns that they may have come in contact with somebody. And each incident, actually, the health department responded a little bit differently. And all of it has to do with timing of when symptoms came on, when they may have come in contact. So there's a lot of variables in that. But what we would say is if students have to be home, is that they get tested immediately. And so, because we really don't want them to have to stay home for 2 weeks. And so if a student gets tested and they're negative, obviously, they're more than welcome to come back to school. So I'm not going to say that that isn't the case, but once again, it's hard to say for definite because there are a lot of variables. And that's once again where we have to rely on the information and the guidance from the health department. And that's where we have to provide all the information on our end from contact tracing and, when the symptoms started arising. And, it may be different from a Monday after they were home for the weekend than on a Friday when they've been with us all week. So.
Tony addressed a similar question there. The contact, just to clarify on what Rick just said, contact tracing is not something that Pinckney Schools is doing. That's handed over to the Livingston County Health Department to take care of.
Exactly. Yes. We provide the details, but they're the ones who are following up on the contact tracing. Yep. Let's see.
So there's some questions about Seesaw. So one of the things that we'll let you know is that Seesaw is going to be used for certain things as far as communication and so forth. But some of our content that the student will be doing will be, I know that they have math expressions workbooks that they work out of. Those will be sent home. And so your child will still be able to work on those pieces and not worry about trying to enter the information into Seesaw. One of the things they might use Seesaw for is to maybe record themselves and say, Mrs. So-and-so, here's the assignment that I did, and show the assignment or take a picture of it and send it in. Mm-hmm. But we would not be expecting students to be typing it all into Seesaw. So I just want to make sure that is something that is known. We're going to try to make it as easy as possible. And again, it's going to be different from the spring. I just want to make sure that everyone understands that.
And also just with that in mind, when we're looking at purchasing new Chromebooks, especially for our younger students, we're looking for Chromebooks with touch screens. We know that's definitely an advantage for them. And seeing my own daughter do work on Seesaw, having the ability to actually write with a stylus, and was definitely beneficial. So I think moving forward, when we're looking at new Chromebooks, especially for, once again, our younger students, looking at the opportunity to have a touch screen, because that makes that process of actually using your computer much easier when you're doing a subject such as math, and you have to write that information down.
And just for clarification, Rick, the Chromebooks that we're expecting in October, those are touchscreen computers. Those are touchscreen devices that those K2 students will be able to use. The initial rollout that we are using, what we have now, those won't be touchscreen, but as soon as they're available, we'll get those out.
Yep. So the ones we have now are just the existing Chromebooks. Like you said, we have to wait just because of the back order till the end of September. But the new Chromebooks that we will have, as Mr. Partridge just shared, will be touchscreen. So we're excited for that.
Then there's a question that's kind of come up in a couple different ways here about if a class would be canceled if there were not enough students virtually showing interest. If one of the two of you wants to talk about that.
Well, I think I talked specifically about an AP class, and so we also work. So there might be a few classes at the secondary level, definitely not elementary, but the 7-12 level, where if a student is interested in taking it, and there's only one student, or maybe it's even a class that doesn't fit into their schedule, right? Because that sometimes happens at the high school level. We do have a relationship with Michigan Virtual. And so some of our kids might take 1 or 2 courses with Michigan Virtual because it was already part of their normal schedule that they would have been handed out should they have been face-to-face.
Right.
And so that is a possibility. So for parents who are worried, like my child is an AP, no one else is an AP, they're not going to offer it. Yes, we will offer it. It just might not be with a Pinckney teacher. It might be with Michigan Virtual, but those are going to be one-to-one conversations with very specific students.
Right. And that's a common practice that we have students who are all different levels. And so, there's been times that we've had 8th graders who were, appropriate for 10th grade geometry, but we didn't have a number, we couldn't fit it in their schedule at the high school or just make the accommodation. There was only 1 or 2. So they would take that class online with Michigan Virtual. We had a young lady who was fluent in Spanish and was ready for Spanish 2 or Spanish 3, I believe. And obviously we didn't offer that at the middle school level. And so she took that online. So that's a common practice, and that's happening more and more as I think a lot of there's, unfortunately a teacher shortage. And so when you're looking at specialty classes, especially AP courses or a course such as sign language or maybe a foreign language that students want to take that we can't provide, schools are using Michigan Virtual as an alternative, and that's working out really well. So this situation would be no different.
And I think I saw the question earlier, just to clarify, it wasn't this specific scenario, but we're not saying that if there's only 10 third graders who are saying, I want to be virtual, then we're not saying, no, we're not doing third grade then. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Right.
that is correct.
Even if there's only 10 third graders, we're still going to offer third grade to those 10 third graders virtually.
Absolutely.
Yep. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Just
want to make sure everybody understood that.
Yep.
There's a question about ACT, SAT. It's still the plan for us to have it face-to-face at this time. We are awaiting of guidance from them. Should that change? But that is not something that we can change. It is something that is done by the college board. And they're the ones that, offer those, the tests.
Right.
So now it is face-to-face.
And just for clarification, we're going to be offering 2 sessions for the SAT. If you recall, our juniors last year were expected to take it in April, but because of COVID and the quarantine and the stay-home order, they could not. So they're now our seniors. They still have to take the SAT. So there is dates scheduled in October for our current seniors to take the SAT. We will then have our usual SAT for our current juniors to take it in April. So we're going to be running two sessions of SAT testing, but once again, as stated, we got to follow the guidelines that the college board puts in place, and I'm really hoping, especially for those seniors, that we're able to get it taken care of this October.
There's a question about feedback on hesitation to start 5-year-old kindergartners. Any ideas if parents are opting to wait until 6 to start? I have not heard that. I do know that some of my personal friends have had these conversations, but it is not something that I've heard of our parents ask. It's actually the first time that I've heard the question. So no feedback there. Tanya, if we're required to vaccinate our children to attend school, why are we not testing all children and staff before we put them all together? It is not a requirement, and we are not a health clinic. And so one of the guidelines for schools, it's kind of like, as someone asked, I think earlier, are we taking temperatures of everyone? We actually, as schools, cannot take temperatures of every single child. The only time we can take temperatures is if we have a suspicion that the child is sick. So the child comes in the office, says they don't feel good, their head hurts, their tummy hurts. We can do it then, but we can't just screen temperatures or have all kids be tested prior to entering their school, because that is considered a physical, and we are not medical providers and cannot do that at schools.
Right. That's part of the state code conduct, is that we can't do that. And parents do get waivers for vaccinations. And so not all students are vaccinated, and that's a parent's choice. They just simply have to have a doctor fill out the form for them to do that. So that guideline, any guidelines from that comes strictly from the state. We can't dictate that as an individual school district. And so, I mean, I can appreciate your question, but, so once again, even if the student exhibits symptoms, we can't mandate they get tested. We can make recommendations, and once again, as stated, if a family chooses not to get their child tested, then they're just going to have to stay out of school for a period of time.
Basha, there's a question about RTI or intervention process for virtual students.
So again, this is part of the plan, is that if there's a student who needs additional support based on their needs, those times will be built into their schedule, and it will be synchronous, meaning it will be live. And so parents should expect that as part of their student's schedule. So if they need extra support, whether it's from their special education teacher or whether it's from an interventionist for reading, they should expect to be logging in live in those particular instances, because the teacher will be teaching them, obviously, those sessions via a computer.
Lindy asked a question about, and I think this one came up, actually, I think it came up last Thursday during the board meeting. They're planning to sanitize playground equipment after a class has been out there for recess. And it's good timing because we just got an update. I actually shared it with our leadership team yesterday from the health department. It's a fact sheet, and they had specifically playground equipment on there. And it is not an expectation that we can sanitize all the playground equipment. I mean, first off, you would just look at Country Elementary and see the amount of playground equipment we have there. It's just not feasible to be able to do that in a timely fashion. And secondly, we would have to do that with our sprayers, and with the outside wind, then just, we can't guarantee that if we spray things, it's not going to get carried away from the wind. And so the strategy that is being recommended to us is that we're going to sanitize students. Before they go on playground equipment, they have to sanitize their hands, and then when they come back in, they've got to sanitize. And so that's the recommendation from the health department in terms of using playground equipment.
There's a question about virtual open houses, and I know that came up before. If either of you want to talk about the videos and things that are being planned.
Well, first off, I know Basha she's been working with the principals on this, but parents just, I think, we resort to kind of how school used to look, and we understand that we haven't had an opportunity to do a lot of transition activities, orientation, new students, kindergartens. That first week of school is going to be kind of like our opportunity to do orientation. And we've had situations where we've had new students, new families at school. Our teachers are great at getting kids in, making them feel comfortable. We understand the anxiety and just not knowing of like where things are at or how things operate and what are the systems in place. So they're just experts at that, and they're just gifts. And I have no concerns about that. We're going to take a lot of time, as much time as necessary, to get kids feeling comfortable, because once again, they haven't been here since March. So just coming in the door, taking time, and just getting reacclimated with, what does school look like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? And obviously it's going to be different given the current situation. So we're conscious of that, and we're going to do, everything we can to share information through videos, through just communications to home, but also when our students are with us, we're going to be taking time during the school day to make sure they feel as comfortable as possible.
Are there any more questions?
Somebody asked a question, what does RTI stand for?
I think that was answered, response to intervention.
Yeah, it was. I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I said that this time, but if we have missed your question, if you wouldn't mind popping it in there, because we really don't want to miss any questions.
Yep.
We're happy to answer any of them that you put out there, but we might have missed that.
There's a question somebody just asked about air ventilation. We're very, obviously conscious about that, and we have a system to continually check and replace our filtering systems. We do, per the standards, we have to do a lot of tests, whether it's water test or even our filtration system. And so constantly monitoring that. Jim Hayden, who's our director of maintenance, has just been an outstanding resource for our entire district. He just met with a great, huge team yesterday. And he takes his role very seriously and the responsibility to keep everybody safe very seriously. So that's something he and his team is, very in tune to, and they're conscious to make sure we can do everything from a preventative measure and just continually assessing the situation from an air quality standpoint as well. And that's not new. That's something that we've always paid close attention to, just because we know kids with allergies and asthma and just some health conditions, trying to make sure that it's a safe environment on a day-to-day basis.
There was a question about the board meeting. Oh, there he goes. It's really, the board meeting this Thursday is to approve the return to school plan, which we are discussing a little bit right now. Mostly we're talking about virtual school, but it's the return to school plan for phase 4.
Yep, and that board meeting is a special board meeting. We had to schedule it. It wasn't on our original schedule because we need to, the plan needs to be approved by the 15th. And information will be on our website, just like it was for last week's meeting. We'll get the Zoom link and everything you need to know by tomorrow morning. That'll be posted.
Rick and Basha have both spent time talking to a lot of teachers about how they feel about all of the planning and their participation in the plan. And I don't know that we talked to this group very much about that. So maybe one of the two of you or both of you might want to take a few minutes just to talk about how teachers are feeling about the plan, their involvement in the plan, and if there's any ramifications as far as teachers leaving, et cetera, because I know that's a question others have had.
Yeah, I could talk about that. Part of the, and I didn't present that to you today just because I did it yesterday and I did it on Thursday, and it seemed like people were not interested in that, but I'm glad someone's asking. So we've been working with our teachers since in planning and asking for feedback and so forth. Obviously, since the closure happened, I mean, all of the things that we have developed so far, whether it was the emergency learning plan for the spring, asking them for feedback on Seesaw, feedback on Google Classroom. We've been surveying them left and right. The other piece is that we formed committees district-wide, and every teacher was invited in order to help us process through the safety protocols in phase 4, through the virtual learning, through what will that look like, along with the remote learning plan should we go into phase 1 through 3. I know that we had over 75 teachers who are participating in that district-wide, and we have 130 teachers district-wide. So more than half were part of those conversations because we invited everyone to the table. We also had parent forums where parents came in over the summer and we asked them for feedback. We also had the surveys that were sent out to our families to see, what we need to improve for this year. What are they really worried about? And so this really was a collaborative process. Are teachers anxious? Absolutely. I'm not going to say that they're not, but I think after us collaborating on these plans together and them they're working with their principals right now to see what will that actually look like in their buildings and not just, on a piece of paper. Teachers are feeling better. I will tell you that after yesterday's, we had a professional development for our support staff yesterday, and our director of operations shared the equipment that was purchased and what each classroom will be equipped with, and face masks and sanitizer, and how everything will be cleaned. Everyone walked away from that meeting feeling very confident that we are able to keep our students, our staff, in our community safe. And so I'm just, like I said, this plan was not created in isolation. It was 100% collaborative. We even had students that joined and participated in creating this plan. And so, like I said, I think teachers feel nervous. I mean, I think I would be, we all are anticipating because it's something we've never done before. But I think we have all the pieces in place to make sure that we are executing this with fidelity and with the utmost careful notion to just us keeping everybody safe, but at the same time, helping our students learn.
Great. No, and absolutely. I mean, we definitely recognize the worry, the anxieties that come with this. And, obviously we all watch the news, we read articles, and often it's very frightening. And sometimes you get so frightened, you feel paralyzed, and, and it's hard to move forward. And so what we tried to do here in Livingston County and in Pinckney is look at our environment, our climate situation in Livingston County. And this is where I work with the health department's been paramount. And really going back to how we try to make really good informed decisions and using data. And very easy to use the emotion and get tied up in the emotion. And we've caught ourselves, and I've caught myself doing that as well. But taking a look at, Livingston County, where we're at, and making sure we can create a safe environment. And, these teachers are very special to me. A lot of them are very close personal friends. They're my own kids' teachers. And I never want to put them in a position that I feel is going to jeopardize them. And so, moving forward, we're very upfront with the health department of, helping guide us. And, I've shared the screenshot from this yesterday. The data that we're using here in Livingston County is different than what other surrounding counties are. I mean, you are seeing schools that are choosing to go full virtual, and they're choosing that because maybe their data is a little bit different. And here in Livingston County, first off, the request from parents has been over 80 to 90% that they want some form of face-to-face education for their students. And so using that information, and then in coinciding with all the safety measures that we're putting in place, from sanitizers to masks to face shields to just all the different protocols we have, on top of the extremely low rate that we have, we feel that actually schools, and I truly believe this, are going to be some of the safest places for our students and staff to be. When I look at where our students are going out, they're shopping and going to Target, and they're out and about, and I was out on the weekend and just saw a lot of kids and the environments they were in. Nowhere I've been is going to replicate the environment that we're going to have here at school, and the number of adults who are watching out for each other. We're going to have 100% participation with people wearing masks. We're going to have constant cleaning in terms of the school during the school day, and then obviously in the evening. We're going to have sanitizers. We're going to have protocols for lunch. And this is going to be the most structured, controlled environment our kids will be part of. And so alongside that, with just knowing that our kids are coming to us healthy, we get in the mindset that these are sick kids we're bringing into our environment. And that's not the case. This is not a hospital. This is our community that, given the data that I'm showing you right now, it's a healthy community. In Livingston County right now, this is as of today, there's a 1.0% positive rate. Last week, it was 1.6, and it's already gone down in a week. And you can see the trend using this. It's been extremely, it's been 0.6, 0.9. Yesterday it was 0.9. The health department goal is to keep this number below 3%. And that's kind of the safety bar that they're setting for us. And so it's been consistently low. So if this number increases, we're going to reassess, and we're going to make the right decision for everybody. And we may have to roll back the plan. And if that's the case, we'll pivot and we'll do that. But with this low rate and just the other data that we're seeing here is kind of scrolling down, and this is just the cases per million that we're seeing. These are actual numbers. You can see the trend that we're seeing here too. Cases per million is 18, today is 18.9 people per million. And we don't even have obviously number of people in Livingston County. It's much smaller. So if you scale it to about 100,000 people, it's probably around 7 people per 100,000 is what and that is a low number, and it's continuing to trend downward. And looking at Livingston County as well, this is data just in terms of the death rate. The last death that was recorded was, I believe, around June 12th, and this is flatlined to be 0 for almost 2 months straight, which is excellent for everybody. But the data is trending to where Livingston County is a safe environment, but once again, it's done in conjunction with all the safety parameters, structures we're putting in place. I do feel in my heart of hearts that our schools are going to be the safest places for our kids and our staff. Doesn't mean we're not going to have concerns, we might not have issues, but unfortunately, we're going to have to learn how to respond to those, how to adjust to those, because that's going to be part of our normalcy kind of going forward. And we're going to have that transition. This is our transitional period to deal with this. Even when a COVID vaccine does get put into the mix, there's no guarantee that everybody's going to have a vaccine. I don't think there's going to be a mandate that you're going to be required to take it, just like there isn't a mandate right now. People can opt out. So there's still going to be cases that come up down the road, but we're going to need to learn about how do we support the students and the family and the staff members when those issues arise. And so, so I just want to kind of bring some clarity to that, and then really what's the drivers behind our decision making.
Asha, I'm wondering if you might want to talk a little bit about the last question there, which is about what kind of tools teachers would have to help kids who are dealing with the anxiety that comes along with just even handling all these precautionary measures that are being put in place.
Sure. So one of the parts of the plan is focusing all on the social and emotional well-being of our students, families, and staff. And so we didn't talk much about that, but we do have student family specialists that are in each individual building, and they will be providing a lot of resources to not only our staff, but to our families, our parents at home. We'll also be doing a training for our teachers to help them understand how to guide students during these times, because students might experience anxiety and be nervous about coming back to school. And so their students or the teachers will receive that training as well. We have professional development scheduled before school starts, 2 weeks before school starts, for that particular reason. Is we will be teaching our staff best practices with online instruction, since we will be asynchronous on Fridays. We will also be talking about social emotional learning and teaching them, what to anticipate, how to look for signs of anxiety, how to support a student, what resources are available. And we are obviously going to be doing all different kinds of trainings regarding the tools that are going to be used in the classrooms, the safety protocols. I mean, all the things that you can think of, we have to provide that to our teachers. Now, we are also unique in Pinckney because we provide professional development on Fridays. And so every Friday, our teachers will also get doses of trainings, reminders. I know we talked about this before school started, but let's come back to this social emotional well-being. Here are resources that we've been sending to our families. They seem to be using it. Are you using it in the classroom? Here's what it looks like. And so all of those pieces are going to be part of their ongoing training as well. I have to submit a plan to the state of Michigan of what our training will look like. And we are right in the middle of having all of those conversations to plan it out for the remainder of the school year. So that's great questions to ask about that. And we're definitely preparing for those.
Well, we're hitting that time where we're running out of questions, and nobody's asked about football yet. So.
Oh.
Well, thank you, Lindy. Appreciate it. Lindy, I know you're a teacher as well, so just appreciate all that you're doing and preparing, for your kiddos this year. So we're very blessed in this community. We've had a great amount of support from our parents, and we have a fantastic staff. And I truly believe if we're going to make this work, this is the best place to do it, because we got the right people. We've got the right people teaching our classes. We've got the right people in our community who just get it. They understand what we're trying to do. They're appreciative. You're patient. You're encouraging. The amount of emails that we get to encourage us. People are telling us they're praying for us. All the different things is, I tell people, if we're going to make this successful, Pinckney is the place we're going to make it work, because the way you support us is essential. And I think we're going to be pleasantly surprised when we get into this that things are probably going better than what we can imagine. When we all have anxiety, we tend to think the worst. Our brains kind of go in that direction, which is understandable. But I'm confident our kids are going to be able to do a good job. Our students have been great with masks. We're all going to adjust, but we all know that we're doing this so we can get back to what we enjoy school being, with all the great activities and athletics and music programs. That's what makes school so special. So we're going to get there. I have no doubt about it. And we're going to learn a lot, and we're going to grow a lot. I think this is going to benefit us as well. I'm looking forward to all the innovation and the opportunities to do some things differently in education. To me, that's an exciting part about this.
So
we do have a football question.
I was going to say, now before you hit the football question, though, there were a couple questions that popped in. So if you want to talk about, the question was, will 6 feet be observed during lunches? Is that possible?
Well,
Yes. Yes, it is.
that's our goal at the table is right. So right now, I'll just speak specifically to Pathfinder because we're right down the hall from the cafeteria, and Mrs. Sandula has, walked me down, and she's got all the tables set up. She's got kind of like placeholders where students can sit, three to a table that creates that space. When they're waiting in line, we're gonna have stickers on the floor to do that. Obviously students are gonna walk, they're gonna be able to go to the bathroom during lunch, and they're gonna be able to get their lunch, and they're gonna walk by students. I mean, there's no way that, in terms of we may come in, within 3 feet, or, that's gonna happen. The key is, that's why we have masks on. The mask is kind of the, that's the key piece in all this. You wear a mask when you can't always guarantee social distancing. We're gonna have students walking in the hallways going to classes. They're probably gonna be closer than 6 feet. In classrooms, school classrooms aren't constructed to create 6 feet barriers between all of us. But if we have the masks on, we wash our hands, we use sanitizer, that's the best way to mitigate the spread of any virus, whether it's COVID, it's the flu, it's the common cold. Hopefully we're gonna be the healthiest we've ever been this upcoming year. Not only are we hoping to deter the COVID virus, but the flu virus or anything else comes our way. But yes, we are putting structures in place in cafeterias to create that 6 feet space as much as humanly possible.
Then another question about the date, and I think you talked about this yesterday, Basha, the date when parents will be able to find out who their student's teacher is, K-6, what student schedules are, et cetera.
I believe we set it for the 28th of August.
That just leaves football to talk about.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, first off, I'm gonna say that the football season has been canceled. Yeah, I know I'm still holding out hope that there's some month delay, but obviously the NCAA is starting to make big decisions with that, and people start to translate that straight to high school. And that's not necessarily the case. Remember, universities are much larger organisms and communities. That's very difficult to control, to regulate. Schools, obviously we have 5 schools, but each one, we can manage that. Like I said, we're gonna have strict protocols of who can come in the building during the day. Our students are not independent. They're not working, they're not living in frat houses, they're living in your homes. And, once again, parents helping out with all the safety measures. And also the governing body, MHSAA, is really working hard to make sure that we can do everything we can to provide some sort of academic or athletic experience for our kids. It's an essential part to their school experience. It's good for their own social emotional well-being, and they're pushing hard. So we're not hearing that come from the state organization, is that we have football practice starting right now. I just posted a great video of our kiddos. We've got, field hockey, we've got cross country, got soccer, we've got all kinds of athletic opportunities you will want to see happen. I do believe we're gonna do everything we can in the state to get those moving forward. Now they're probably gonna be limited in terms of number of spectators. I don't think they're gonna be absent of any spectators. I think their parents will be allowed to see their kids play. Each athlete may be limited to having 2 people there, but I'm hopeful and I'm encouraged. Brian Warlow just spent a 3-hour meeting Sunday evening, engaged in a state level conversation with the head of the MHSAA, and they've been doing a phenomenal job, and they're pushing forward. So we're hopeful that we can do that. We're working hard to make sure school can happen in person, and we want to see that stay true for our athletes as well.
Okay.
We've got no fresh questions coming in at this point.
Well, once again, just want to thank you all for being here, giving up an hour and a half of your Tuesday afternoon, and some of you were here last night as well. So you've definitely given a lot of time, and God bless you if you were part of the board meeting last week as well. And if you have further questions, and as you may, feel free to once again reach out to any of us here, whether it's through email, give us a call. If we feel like, boy, there's still a lot of unanswered questions, we will be more than happy to provide another session. And we may just do that as we get closer and seeing how things kind of unfold down the road. these are great forums. We really enjoy it. I know Basha, Michael, and myself, this is a great way to really connect with our community. And, this is something that, I would like to almost personally continue on just throughout the course of the school year. Because I think the communication is kind of the big factor in helping us feel better about the situation, helps alleviate our anxieties and worries. And so I think this is a great start to that. So any closing thoughts or words, Basha and Michael?
I think I'm just really, really happy about the process that we took to create this plan. And so I just want to thank all of you for your great questions and for all your support that we have for our community. I'm just really proud to be at Pinckney during these really, really difficult times. So thank you so much.
Agreed. Amen.
Yep. So once again, this meeting is being recorded. I'm going to stop that recording here. So we'll make it available once we get it processed and linked up to YouTube. And once again, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your beautiful Tuesday afternoon. And go Pirates.